Hello all, and welcome back to the Nothing Notable podcast. This is our Best of 2021 series. It seems like we just recorded our Best of 2020 series, but all of a sudden it's been 12 months again. But this time we're going to be talking about movies, the cinema, films, all of that good jazz that we all watch and I love a lot and we all love equally. Jack watches movies too.
Yeah.
And today we're going to be talking about, I think, a very great year in cinema. I think 2020 really held back movies because there weren't a lot of movies that came out in theaters. But 2021, movies are back in action. Full crowds are back in action. And there's a lot of good stuff this year. I guess I'll start with one. This was a movie I saw, honestly, it seems like it was pretty early on, but it was actually in the middle of the year. And I just want to shout it out real fast. I think Dan knows what I'm talking about. I'm talking about Pig.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nicolas Cage's Pig. Not that Nicolas Cage wrote and directed the movie, but Nicolas Cage is in this. It's a very good film. It's understated. It's a movie I saw at the Chinese theater on a Wednesday, and it was only $5. But yeah, Pig is very low key, and it's very just nice. Nicolas Cage gives a great performance, and I don't think that's surprising because he's a great actor. But what is surprising, not really, because he's good in everything he's in. Alex Wolff is really good in it. And I think the thing is, I always see Alex Wolff as Alex Wolff in things. He's always kind of a kid, but this one he plays an adult man who's a kid. He's an adult, but he is still very much a kid because he's driving his dad's car and he's trying to keep it safe. But he's a young man in this, but he wants to be a man so desperately. And he plays it so differently than anything I've seen him in. Including Old, where he plays a 6-year-old kid.
Right.
But yeah, Pig. Do you have anything to say about Pig, Dan?
So I have not seen Pig yet.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I was nodding in agreement because the other night, Jack and I were going to watch a movie in preparation for this podcast, and it was between Power of the Dog or Pig. And ultimately, we watched Power of the Dog, a movie we'll talk about.
We flipped a coin and it landed on Pig, and then Dan was like, let's watch Power of the Dog instead.
Yeah.
I still have yet to see Power of the Dog. I really want to see it. It was between Jumanji or not Jumanji. It was between Jungle Cruise or Power of the Dog, which Jesse Plemons is in both. And I'm I'm about to go to sleep, so I'll just watch Jungle Cruise. So I dozed off a little bit, but I watched all of Jungle Cruise.
Yeah, Power of the Dog, you have to definitely invest all your attention. But real quick on Pig.
Yeah.
The thing that Pig has going against it is the title concept mixed with lead actor, because as we know, Nicolas Cage makes a lot of bad movies.
Yeah.
Name one.
Man, you got me.
I got you good there.
You got me so good. But he makes a lot of movies that go straight to video on demand.
Yes.
And so when the trailer comes out for this, it almost seems like a meme. It seems like a joke because it's Nick Cage, big bushy beard. I'm going to find my pig. That's the whole movie. Wait a second. What's going on here? And so when reviews started coming out and it was glowingly positive, I was sort of shocked. And ever since then, it's been on my list. I unfortunately have not watched it yet. Let me just quickly say, before the Oscars, we will go through a lot of these movies again. I haven't seen a lot of the movies that I know I will really love. Some that you'll talk about, Tyler, but because of that, I can't really talk about that many movies. Pig is one of them, but I'm glad that you enjoyed it. I'm glad that you mentioned it on this podcast.
I don't know if there was a single movie I saw this year that we haven't already podcasted about. Because that's just who I am. If you've been a listener of this pod, this is well-established canon. That being said, a movie that was released to streaming in 2021 that I really enjoyed was Minari, which I forgot technically came out in 2021 because the Oscars were weird this time around.
Yeah, they had a mix of 2020 movies and 2021 movies, like Judas and the Black Messiah.
Another movie I saw that I enjoyed, even though I wasn't on that podcast because I died right before then.
Oh yeah, you got sick. That's right.
I got sick. Anyways, I really enjoyed Benari. I thought it was a sweet story that like got me in my feels at the end of it.
Totally.
Yeah, I think maybe we'll just talk about Minari and Judas and the Black Messiah real quick, just because we all three of us love those two movies.
Yeah.
Minari is such a nice film. It's there's stuff that happens that is sad in it, but like it's overwhelmingly positive in a way that isn't like hand-holding or insincere or like not being honest about how the world is. It's fair and honest and still positive. And I think that's a nice place to be for a movie. So that's a very good movie that again we have talked about, but good to shout it out again.
Yeah. Lee Isaac Chung did a really great job writing and directing, and he talked a lot about how it was just from his life. And when people say that, it's like really cool to see how it like, how audiences react to it. And they reacted to it in a very good way.
Yeah.
Minari's great, and Steven Yeun is the man.
I'm going to go with another movie that is uplifting, very overwhelmingly positive. It's a movie that just recently came out. You'll see a lot of it in the awards circuit going into next year. It's King Richard, starring Will Smith.
Nice, yeah.
This is a movie that I liked so much more than I was expecting. Sports biopics are a tough bag. They very often devolve into cliches, and they devolve into obvious structure that you can see coming a mile away. You basically can figure out the plot of the movie before you even watch it, because it's in the trailer and because you probably know the true story that it's based off of. For me, I had a knowledge of the Venus and Serena story, but not, I didn't know it backwards and forwards like I do with most other sports biopics. And so for me, this was a lovely sort of entrance into their life story. And I thought that it was beautifully shot, more so than most sports biopics. In many ways, this is sort of like the Ford versus Ferrari of this year, insofar as like it's just a good, well-made movie. It's cleaner, or not cleaner, but like it looks better than most movies of its type, because it's just well shot, well directed, well acted, and there's nothing to be cynical about with it. What else can I say other than I love Will Smith in this movie. Yeah, it's not his best performance, but he makes acting choices. It's not just Will Smith as a superstar in a movie. It's Will Smith playing Richard Williams, making vocal choices, making physical choices.
It's a good casting.
Yeah, it's good casting. And so I think that this is a very good movie, a movie I liked a lot more than I expected, and is overwhelmingly uplifting. So good movie.
Yeah, I started that. I haven't finished it. I just didn't have time in Succession. I had to catch up on a little bit more. So cool. I'll talk about another one that's getting some Oscar buzz for the lead performance, I will say. And I think the buzz has kind of died down, so I'm interested to see what award season comes of it. But I genuinely feel like this is going to be a movie we look back on, and it's going to be underrated for a lot of people. I really love this film. It's Spencer. It's by Pablo Larraín, and it stars Kristen Stewart as Princess Diana. And if you're saying it like that, it definitely sounds like not like, why are they making that movie? But I think the film is about a lot more than just like rich white people. I just feel like it's just so much more about identity and stuff, and also just like even like sexuality, like just it's about identity just in general. And I think like Spencer is just a very good film. And like it does everything right. It's shot beautifully. Like the music is fantastic in it. And again, yes, it is about a woman who hates being in a rich family, and like that's the main thing. But like it's about so much more with the choices they make, with just like cinematography wise and like writing wise. And Kristen Stewart just gives such like a great performance, her best yet. Her accent really never slips, but I'm American, so what do I know? But yeah, Spencer's great, and I would highly recommend watching it.
Pablo Larraín is an excellent filmmaker. I have not yet seen Jackie or Spencer, but I've seen a few of his earlier works. Just a really great filmmaker, and I'm glad that he's getting to make movies.
Yeah, and it's weird because like he's Chilean, and it's like weird how people are like, "Oh, this movie's so white," but it's like it's literally through the lens of a like Chilean person. Like it's not like he's British. Like it's just really interesting, and like you see like the royal family for like real like dickheads, you know, for lack of a better term.
I also think that it's so. This should be studied as a course. What happens with Kristen Stewart and Robert Pattinson in their careers?
Yeah, totally.
Because they are dragged through the coals for Twilight. Yeah. And look at them now.
Yeah.
I mean, Robert Pattinson's my favorite actor. Kristen Stewart is always making interesting choices and doing really cool movies. They're both excellent actors, and so I don't know. I just think that this should be like a cautionary tale. Like, don't shit on actors.
Yeah.
Don't shit on actors when something isn't working, you know, because it's probably not their fault. It's probably more so the director's issue.
Or in some weird way, it's like, well, maybe there's a reason they were cast in this huge franchise thing at such a young age.
Right.
Because they're so talented. And you can just see that with everything they've done since. And Spencer's really great. I recommend checking it out.
I'm excited to check it out. Jack, what do you got next?
Okay. The aforementioned Power of the Dog.
Power of the Dog.
Excellent performances by Benedict Cumberbatch in this. Very, very interesting film. Thoroughly enjoyed watching it. We watched it the other night instead of Pig, which, you know, we already covered this portion. Erotic.
Oh, really? I'm excited. Wow.
Jesse Plemons takes his dick out.
No.
Oh, fuck. You got me excited.
But it's a good one. I would highly recommend it.
Power of the Dog. We watched this together on a small couch, just two guys.
Two guys.
I think this is probably the best directed movie of the year. Nobody would have directed this movie as interestingly as Jane Campion did. And I would love to see her win the Oscar this year. Again, I have not seen a lot of the movies that I know I will love. A lot of the movies that should be on this list, I have not seen yet. So a lot of the movies I'm going to mention are not the best necessarily, but they're movies I did very much enjoy. But anyway, Power of the Dog. Jane Campion, what she is interested in is not necessarily what the audience is expecting. Like the audience expects something very different out of this movie than what Jane Campion delivers. There are very tight close-ups of boots walking in muddy water, of hands just gripping, caressing, and touching things like a saddle or a lasso, or, you know, things like oh my god, what was the thing that they make in that?
The rope. They make a rope.
They make a rope.
Very intense.
It's very, very sexual and very very homoerotic.
But it doesn't feel like cliche.
No.
Ever. It doesn't feel like,
It does ask you to lean in a little bit, and it never goes into exposition mode.
There's a lot of subtext.
There's
here.
a lot of subtext. Even there's a, you know, not a twist necessarily, but like a big reveal towards the end of the film.
It's actually the power of the cat.
It's the power of the cat. And even that I had to think about. I was like, wait, and then I had to piece things together, and I was like, this is good. She was telling us this the entire time, but I'm not as smart as her, so I wasn't there. She's just a step ahead. So my only final thought is this is one of the best subgenres of the Western that there is, which is the quote unquote gay cowboy. Brokeback Mountain, this movie, things like even like to be a little bit more broad, but like the singing cowboy, the dancing cowboy, just things that question masculinity within the Western genre are incredibly interesting, because the entire idea of the West in film is a lie, and it props up the worst of masculinity. So interrogating those things is always interesting, and Jane Campion is one of the most interesting filmmakers, and so she does just a stellar job with this movie. High recommend. Even though I just took over the Power of the Dog thing, I'll go next. Tyler, let's talk about The Green Knight.
Oh, okay, yeah. I was going to save it, but yeah. Let's talk about The Green Knight.
The Green Knight, again, talking about period pieces like with Power of the Dog. The thing I just want to hit on most of all is that I like what David Lowery did here by casting Dev Patel.
Yeah.
It's not a choice that you would immediately think of if you were about to do an Arthurian legend.
Yeah. Gawain.
Yeah, not only would you think to cast a white person, probably, because that's what we've seen in Arthurian legend. I'm not talking about that. Just, I don't know. There's when I look at Dev Patel, I don't see an Arthurian knight, but totally. David Lowery did. And then he cast him, and he was an Arthurian knight.
Oh my God.
This is one of my favorite performances of the year. He is so handsome, and he's so charming and charismatic, but he's also full of so many flaws and issues, and he's trying to become a knight, and he's trying to prove his honor and his worth as a man, and he's failing and what this is a great movie about honor and about what it means to be a knight. It's an excellent movie. It has my favorite ending of the year. I think about the final line and the final gesture a lot. And then that bell that we hear.
I mean, that final sequence too.
The whole last 15 minutes.
Yeah, is incredible. I mean, it's tied first for my favorite movie of the year so far.
Nice.
For sure. And I think, like everything you said, and the production design is like incredible, and how they create this world. I mean, I don't know. Have you read the original Arthurian legend?
I've gone back and read it.
Okay, cool.
I didn't read it before.
So I took a medieval literature course in 2019 summer, and we read Gawain and the Green Knight. And it was one of my favorite stories that we read. And I was so pleasantly surprised that A24 was doing it. And then I saw the trailer and I'm like, holy shit, this is going to be so sick. And it was. And like, I think it really brings the story out well, but it also like changes it up for people who enjoy the story. I mean, for one, like I'm pretty sure it's pronounced Gawain, but like in the whole thing, they're like Garwin. Right? They're like, Garwin, do this. But yeah, like I was saying, the production design is incredible. They do a nice just switch up with the story. And yeah, like Dev Patel is so good in it, and so is Alicia Vikander, so is Joel Edgerton. So is oh my God, what's his name?
Barry Keoghan.
Yeah,
I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but
Keegan, I think it is.
He's awesome.
He's just briefly in it, and I'm like, the whole time I'm like, it's so funny because I saw it on a huge screen, and it's shot in such a way that like you can't even tell it's Barry Keoghan, and I'm like, is that him? And it really puts you in where Dev Patel is, and it's just like in, just like the middle of nowhere, seeing a stranger from far away.
He has one line where he says something to the extent of like, you can rest your bones after he does a thing, and it just, it's a small part in the movie, but it's a very memorable part. I don't think that there's a single wasted character, or every single performance it lights up the screen and is very interesting. Even Garwin's mother in the beginning of the film, every single performance is really good.
Every sequence too is just like it's a vignette piece really, in some ways. Like he's on this journey to the Green Knight, but this one in particular just takes its time, and it's just really beautiful, and like it's a movie you never like want. At least me, I never wanted to leave this movie. It was just so relaxing to be back in a theater and just watching it. I mean, it was the first one that I absolutely love.
By the time I get to the middle of the movie, I'm thinking, okay, David Lowery, the director of this film, just put everything else on hold and just make 25 of these movies and just Dev Patel through the course of his life and just take me all the way through and just go on different quests, see different weird things. When the giants show up in this movie, it's just like, what the oh yes, please.
Well, it was also an interesting movie because you're like, what is the budget on this? Because like you're like, this looks incredible, and then they keep going and you're like, whoa.
One of my coworkers asked me like, should I watch it? And I said yes, of course, because I think it's a good movie, but I did preface it by saying like almost nothing happens in this movie. There's character stuff going on and there is a quest, but like for the most part, it is guy walks or rides a horse from place to place. And while he is tested throughout it, the tests are not terribly significant. Like there's the most dangerous one is like the first one where he gets like tied up. And then he gets out of it. So like the stakes don't feel quite as big as you would expect out of an Arthurian legend, but that's kind of why I like this movie so much, is because it is just it's not totally this, but it feels like slice of life, or at least related to those sorts of movies.
But it's like at such a grand scale.
But it's really at a grand scale, and it's about an Arthurian knight.
Yeah. Which is just a great way to make a movie.
Which is also, people that love like Star Wars or Marvel, they ask for this all the time. It's like, yeah, let's just do like a movie about a Jedi, but it's just like a slice of life. Like it's right after episode 3 and like he's survived and he's just like living out in the woods or something. And that's kind of this movie. It's like Arthurian legend, but just dude walks and rides a horse.
Yeah, exactly. And it's beautiful and you never want to leave.
Yeah.
And also, Erin Kellyman is in it as a figure halfway through the movie. And you definitely would recognize her. She's in Solo. And she's also in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. But it's just nice to see her in still a big budgeted thing, but just like where she gets to like actually act.
Yeah.
And she plays like a really fun little vignette in it. And it was just a full Arthurian legend, and it was just wonderful to watch.
And like we said, just because an actor is known for one type of thing doesn't mean that they're not capable of doing a different type of thing.
Yeah.
And Dev Patel never screamed Arthurian Knight to me, but after watching this movie, I will never doubt Dev Patel ever again. I think that he should be the lead of the next Star Wars movie. He should be in the Marvel universe. He should be obviously I don't actually want that because I want him to do more interesting movies like The Green Knight, but he could do anything.
Yeah.
Incredible performance.
All right. I'll keep moving along. I'll do like a little different one, spice it up a bit. The Suicide Squad is fantastic.
Also on my list.
Yeah. I really love James Gunn's Suicide Squad. I think it's such a big bummer that 2016 Suicide Squad had to happen for this one to be made. But literally there'd be no possible way this would happen without the 2016 Suicide Squad getting made. The opening sequence is so funny. It's so great. I was watching it in the theaters and I was just like, this is beautiful. This is everything I wanted out of the first one. And as it goes along, it just gets more fun. Starro is in it. Starro is one of like my fucking nightmare fuel when I was little and would like read DC comics. It is great. James Gunn is just a fantastic filmmaker. Albeit like, I feel like I always say this, but I feel like I just kind of like, I don't know James Gunn. I'll never know James Gunn, but I feel like I get him on like on a weird level. So like most of his things, I'm like, this is going to happen. And it does. And I'm not upset about it. I'm really like, yeah, this is cool. Cause like when he plants seeds, I can like see them more than other filmmakers. And I'm like, oh, this is going to happen. And then it does. And I'm like really happy about it. Cause it's just like a nice setup and punch. And yeah, I don't know. King Shark's great in it. He's essentially just Groot. Honestly, like the standouts are like oddly like Idris Elba in it, who's playing Bloodsport. John Cena's fucking funny in it.
Great.
And also Joel Kinnaman as Rick Flag is like one of the best characters in the movie. It's crazy. But yeah, really fun. Starro is so weird. It's such a weird movie. And it's like unabashedly weird. And I feel like the first one was trying to be Hot Topic weird.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it. This movie surprised me quite a bit. I came into it, honestly, I hate to say this because I try not to do this, but we all have our little flaws.
Yeah.
I have no flaws.
Shit. But I came into this movie kind of wanting to dislike it. Like I had to stop myself, and I did when I started it. But coming into it, I did have a negative attitude towards it. One, because of the previous Suicide Squad movie. Two, because I feel like the whole conceit was just so cynical. Like the trailer just looked like it was going to be this deeply cynical movie that I don't know. I didn't have high hopes for it. And the movie is not terribly cynical. It still is, but like not in the way that I think is problematic or annoying. There's a few moments, one particular character who I won't name, but one particular character dies in a very cynical way. But you know, with that and a few other exceptions, the movie is fairly sincere, and it's about, you know, as James Gunn movies often are, it's about found families. Yeah. And also slightly politically minded movie. We've talked about this before, I think, but it has like a perspective on foreign policy, and like military coups and like the role of American interventionism in Southern American countries. And the idea of action movies taking place in foreign countries and using those countries as a playground to inflict, you know, an incredible amount of violence and destruction. And so the movie has like ideas and thoughts, and there are parts that remind me so much of Slither, which is a movie that James Gunn made that we both really like. And it's a weird movie and it's fun, and it's by no means an exceptional film in my mind, but like I enjoyed the hell out of it.
Polka Dot Man also and Ratcatcher 2 are just literally the best characters. James Gunn movies always have like villains that are interesting, and I think even Starro, who like is a giant starfish with a giant eye, like he managed to make that an interesting villain, which is great.
Jack,
I don't know if there's another movie I've seen that we haven't talked about in a previous pod already.
Sure.
I will just say
Warhorse.
Warhorse, where's my warhorse? I did not enjoy In the Heights the first time I watched it. The second time I watched it, once I already was like knew what the plot was like and how it differed, I thought it was more enjoyable. Just the fact that they got to make something they were so passionate about, I appreciate, and I just wanted to throw it out there.
I think that's smart. I think that yeah.
I mean, I was gonna say the thing like we always talked about, I think in the Heights, was everyone definitely had fun making it,
right?
And that's all that matters.
Yeah, they had a good time, and like even though we have our problems, like I had fun watching it. It was there were disappointments about it, but it's a movie musical, and you can always find something fun in that. Yeah. Speaking about movie musicals, we've talked about it a little bit, but Bo Burnham's Inside.
I guess I'll talk about it here.
Technically a stand-up comedy special, technically a TV special, technically a movie. I don't know what you want to call it, but it's one of the best things of the year.
Yeah.
Bo Burnham provided the most insightful and thoughtful look into the mind of an artist during the 2020 quarantine, and it's just an exceptional piece of work. I think it's going to be a foundational text for this era that we are in still, unfortunately. When we look back at what the COVID-19 pandemic was, I think that this is one of the things that we will cite. And so I think it's in many ways a piece of history. You could put this thing up in a museum. It's very funny. It's very smart. It knows when to pick and choose, or knows how to pick and choose how to deliver the message that he wants to deliver, changing formats, changing tones, having emotional breakdowns, but also having emotional breakdowns in a hilarious way. It gives you so much, and it's just infinitely relatable. I think everyone watched this and was like, yeah, me too. This happened to a friend of mine. Bo Burnham's Inside is awesome, and we did a pod about it as well, so please do listen to that. But gosh, we love this thing.
Yeah, it's great. You said it all. We've said it all before on our previous pod, but it's a excellent piece of art that is, a little time capsule of what the last 2 going on 3 years has been.
We're proud of you, Bo.
What's your next one, Ty?
Yeah, my next one, we'll do another vignette one, because I think we've been kind of talking about vignette movies here and there.
Sure.
So let's talk about The French Dispatch. I really love this movie. I was saying it in the music podcast, but like the soundtrack is incredible in this one. And this is Wes Anderson when he's like just extremely right, you know? Like I think everything comes out like a piece of art in this movie. Every shot is just meticulously made, and you know just someone was yelled at when setting up the shot just because how perfect it is, and how like, again, it's like it's so Wes Anderson, and it's so symmetrical, it's so good. And they do a really fun thing. Like the whole crux of the film is writers writing like an issue of a newspaper, or like a magazine, or the French Dispatch. And it's based off a real newspaper. And you know, the opening vignettes are like small little like sampler like articles, and then the three main vignettes are like pages, like, you know, like 20 pages long, more or less. And they're just really interesting stories, and like each vignette has like a narrator, and that those narrators are typically like more or less Wes Anderson regulars, and then Jeffrey Wright is the narrator in the last one. But yeah, it's really good. Bill Murray, it's just so good to see him and stuff.
Yeah.
Bill Murray still got it. He's so good. Jeffrey Wright's a lot of fun in this movie. He's completely like his face is completely shaven in this, and I realized I've never seen Jeffrey Wright like that, which is nice. You know, something about Wes Anderson movies, I feel like if you do one, you're gonna do something you haven't done before. And Benicio del Toro is great in the film. Adrian Brody's really good in the film. They have some fun banter, but yeah, it's just a really good, fun movie that kind of just makes you forget about things, and just like enjoy like this cute little world that Wes Anderson creates. And that's what's great in all his films. He's creating a world.
Now, let me just ask you one question, because I haven't seen the film yet.
Yeah.
I haven't seen anything at all this year.
Yeah.
I'm a bum. I spent time listening to 300 albums.
Yes.
And I couldn't even watch a movie.
This is my time to shine.
This is your time. Let me ask you this though about Wes Anderson, because there are sort of two minds when it comes to, or there are two types of viewers, I suppose, when it comes to Wes Anderson movies. One is the viewer that loves sort of newer Wes Anderson, where it's this dollhouse aesthetic, and everything is so meticulous. It's always been like that, but you know, more so now than it ever was, because he is, you know, just as a filmmaker, he's grown into his style, and now he has perfected his style. The other viewer likes the earlier stuff, where it's a little bit less meticulous. It's a little bit more character focused, honestly. Yeah. So my question is, how is the Wes Anderson experience working for you right now? Because it does feel like the further he goes along, the further he gets from character, you know, because it seems like now he's just building a dollhouse and casting actors that he can place in those dollhouses and exact his vision onto, instead of, you know, having like, I mean, God, Steve Zissou. Like I love Grand Budapest Hotel, and I think that there are interesting characters in that, but it is so meticulous. So in there is somewhat of a question. I think you could take it from there. Totally.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, my favorite Wes Anderson movies are Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou and The Royal Tenenbaums. And there's something about those movies that are so like an artist starting out and really like getting together something truly special, and not it being like a surefire hit every time. And I think Wes Anderson does a really good job in those movies of showing like characters who are, you know, they have so many fallacies, and they also just fuck up so much. And I think that's my big problem like later in his filmography, is that everyone just becomes kind of weird, awkward Wes Anderson characters. It's the reason I don't like Moonrise Kingdom and Isle of Dogs. I think Grand Budapest slid by because I think I think it's weird to say this about Wes Anderson, but now it's Wes Anderson's early stuff was more about characters and their stories and their plights. But now I think the aesthetic of Wes Anderson has taken over, and it's more about the world that they're creating. And the worlds in Grand Budapest Hotel and The French Dispatch work really well for me. But yeah, that's what I think about The French Dispatch. I don't think, again, it's more like aesthetically pleasing and being like, wow, this is just art now. this isn't like a movie. This is just art. And that's what I thought about through the whole movie. And I was just like, wow, beautiful.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of looking at it.
Yeah.
It is like almost an art installation at this point. You're walking into a moving art piece. Jack, do you have any more movies or?
Nope.
Okay.
I'm all out. We're 46 minutes in. I'm not going to waste anyone's time talking about Godzilla versus King Kong.
Yeah, true that.
Okay, so Tyler, you and I will just go back and forth on a few more. Okay, so I only have a few more that I'm going to mention. But and I don't have a ton to say on this next one. I just want to mention it because I think the how they do what they do is interesting and admirable. Bad Trip, the Eric Andre movie.
Oh yeah, so interesting.
There's a bit in the middle of the movie that really just like tanks the movie for a few minutes and then it picks back up again. But other than that one small section, I really like this movie. It's basically like a hidden camera prank movie where there is sort of a running through line, a plot that Eric Andre is trying to find the woman that he loves and ask her out. And he goes on this road trip with Lil Rel Howery. And so that's like the basic premise of the movie. And then crazy pranks happen. Why I wanted to talk about it though was because I never loved Jackass. I never loved hidden camera prank shows like Punk'd. And part of the reason was because it always felt mean-spirited.
Yeah.
Eric Andre, and he's talked about this quite a bit, in this movie and a little bit on the Eric Andre show, he's putting it on himself or on Lil Rel or on whoever else and showing people in their best light. Yeah. So the joke is he sticks his hand in a blender and someone is genuinely shocked and surprised, or he falls off or he's about to fall off a building and it's these people, or actually the best example is when he crashes the car. He crashes the car and it's like gonna blow up and like this one dude's like, no, you can't go over there, man. And he's like trying to help because it's in the middle of a big dispute between Eric Andre and Lil Rel Howery. And so this one dude is like trying to play like their therapist, hero, basically. Yeah. And this is just some guy that is in the middle of a hidden prank. And so like it's showing people at their best instead of at their worst. And I think that that's admirable because the movie could very easily be mean-spirited, but it's not. It's quite in a year or in a couple of years now where there's so much negativity. This movie is like, no, people are good.
Yeah. And I think it just really shows that throughout the movie. And it's just so like, it's so cool that at the end, in the end credits where they just show all the reactions from people after they cut. And it's just like, they're like, oh my God, like I thought this. And then Eric Andre and Lil Rel Howery are just like, man, you're like a hero. Like you like came in here, dude, and you were just so funny. Like at one point, I think Eric Andre's like trying to kill like Lil Rel Howery, and then this guy's just holding him back. And he's like, bro, like it's gonna be okay. Like everything's gonna be okay. And yeah, I think that's what really works about it. And there's some like really silly pranks too, where like they just kind of force it in. Where I think he has like a dream sequence about like how he's gonna marry his like high school sweetheart and then he like makes out with the priest and stuff, and like again there's like silly stuff like that, and I think it's a very clever movie, and it was a lot of fun to watch when it came out in like March, I want to say. But yeah, cool. My next movie, God, we're really getting into these ones. I'll talk about Nightmare Alley. I just saw that last night. Guillermo del Toro's new movie. It is bleak. It is dark. It is fun though, and it is so silly at points. I think it really captures like the 30s and 40s really well. Like I love how at some points, like I think Willem Dafoe at one point's like, hey, I heard that guy who looks like Chaplin invaded Poland. And I'm like, okay, so it is 1939. Like in my head, I'm like, that's the year. And then it has like a 2-year time skip. And then later, like, they're like, you know what year it is? Like Bradley Cooper. And he goes like, yeah, it's like, and I'm like 1941 because I'm doing math in my head and I love history. And he's like, it's 1941. And I'm like, yes, good. But it is a movie that kind of is slow to build. But once it gets going, and then once that ending happens, we were talking about a really good ending earlier, but this ending's really, like, The Green Knight's really good, but this ending's also really good. And it is interesting to see where this movie goes. I didn't watch any of the trailers, but even if you watch the trailers, I don't think you'll know where it's going. Bradley Cooper as Stanton is really understated at the beginning, and then it grows into just such like a despicable like person, and I love seeing Bradley Cooper like that, and like it's just really it's just such a good movie, and I can't wait for people to see it. And I just think it's one of Guillermo del Toro's best. I liked it a lot more than Shape of Water, because I think it's just bleak, and like it is Nightmare Alley, and like there's not a lot of stuff that actually gets resolved at the end, because it's through the lens of a character that doesn't deserve resolution, which is really cool.
That's a great pitch on why to watch this movie.
Yeah.
I really like where Bradley Cooper is at right now in his career. I think he's making really cool choices, and you know, even though he like was the director and star of oh my god,
A Star Is Born.
Yes, of A Star Is Born. Even though it was technically a vanity project, like it felt like he was playing a character that like it is not. Yeah, it's not a vanity role.
No, not at all.
And that's what it sounds like in this one too. He kind of gets to be an asshole.
No, for sure.
And that's a great place for him to be. I think that he sort of is in that, like, not quite the same, but like when Matthew McConaughey was having his McConaissance or whatever it was called. I kind of see that with Bradley Cooper a little bit too. Yeah. He's just making cool choices. He's rejecting sort of that version of himself that he was, where he was like the rom-com lead.
Yeah, it is actually really funny to look back on those movies like All About Steve and Wedding Crashers. And
right.
Again, I'm not saying All About Steve's bad, but the others are good. And like Wet Hot American Summer, like it is cool to see how much he's grown. And I mean, he's so good in this movie.
Yeah. And then my final thought here is just, I wish Guillermo del Toro was more prolific. Mm-hmm. Speaking to what Jack, you were talking about earlier with music, about how you don't want
or later.
You were saying
multiverse of madness.
Yeah, you were saying that like you don't want artists to just like put out 2 albums a year. Obviously, it's not quite the same for movies, but like I do wish that we just got more Guillermo del Toro movies. He puts a lot into his movies, so it obviously takes a lot of time. But I wish that we were in a universe where he was like new Hitchcock, where he was just putting out movie.
I mean, it's just crazy how much of a style he has, but how like you can't capture it. Like people can make parodies of Wes Anderson stuff, but like you can't, like the budget is too big. Like he uses the budget so well. And you can just tell when a movie's a Guillermo del Toro movie, but like, it's just like, everything's like polished, but it's not. It's more or less like it's kind of like a steampunky world that he creates, but it's not overtly steampunk.
Yeah. I think that's a fantastic way of putting it.
Also Ron Perlman, always great to see him in a movie. Kate Blanchett's really good in it. Rooney Mara's great. And also Toni Collette's fun too.
You said that's sort of a bit of a slower movie.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go the complete opposite way. A Quiet Place Part 2. It's a roller coaster ride.
Yeah.
It's a fun amusement park ride through and through. I love the origin scene. We get John Krasinski back just to see when the aliens show up. I think that whole sequence is just awesome. Leaving this movie, here are my basic thoughts. Number 1, these movies are just unimpeachably fun. You can't be cynical about this movie. It's just fun. It's well-intentioned. It's about family. It's like, even if you think it can be a bit corny at times, like it's just trying to be a good, fun movie. And I like that place that it exists in. Number 2, John Krasinski is a genuinely good director.
Yes.
I think he plays tension so well, and I think that he knows how to direct actors. He knows how to play up a scene for whatever given emotion he wants to convey. I just think he's a very good director. He's a great actor, obviously, and I love seeing him in the movie. But I think one of the best choices he made was casting is it Cillian? I always forget if it's Cillian Murphy.
Cillian Murphy. Yeah.
Casting Cillian Murphy to basically be him, but new him, because he's great in the movie, and I like the little arc that he goes on. I think the movie does end very abruptly, but shockingly abruptly. But I left the movie and I was like, let's make 50 of these. Just keep going. Yeah. I don't care. The one thing I'll say that's negative, I do think the movie sort of shortchanges the Emily Blunt character. 100%. I don't think she gets enough in this movie. So hopefully when they do another one, if they do another one, of course they're going to do another one. Huge money maker, even during COVID. Hopefully when they do another one, they give her a bit more shine. A
Quiet Place 2 was the first movie I watched back in theaters since, Little Women.
Great movie.
Yeah. But yeah, A Quiet Place 2 was great. A lot of fun. Really enjoyed it. And yeah, we're rapid fire right now. Licorice Pizza's fucking great.
Good.
PTA is awesome. Alana Haim is good, like so good in it. Cooper Hoffman, you're kidding me. This kid's got chops. He's 18. He was probably like 17 when he shot it or whatever. Crazy good movie. Really just shows off LA well. It's kind of another vignette movie. Big actors, kind of like, it is living in LA like 10 months. I'm not saying I know it well and I didn't grow up here, but like just understanding like how just like things just randomly happen. You meet people and it's like that is just how it is. And it's just like a lot of fun. Bradley Cooper's a lot of fun in it. He is just so different than he is in Nightmare Alley. But yeah, I mean, the real stars are Alana Haim and Cooper Hoffman, like two people who don't act. And it's really cool that PTA found them because they're great together and the movie is just so good. The style is great. And again, it's a nice little coming of age slice of life story about like, just like living as like a youth in the San Fernando Valley. And yeah, that's all I'll say about it. I don't think there's much more to be said, but it's cool when PTA goes back to like more or less like Boogie Nights era, Yeah. Like I feel like Magnolia is very like good. It's fantastic, but it's so serious. Phantom Thread was like incredible, but something PTA does super well is just like he does different shit every time. We talked about Wes Anderson and how he's just getting more into himself. I feel like PTA just likes telling stories. And he always tells a different story, which is cool.
Very excited. Very excited to see that one. Real quick, I'm just going to mention Dune, even though we both have huge criticisms of it. I just don't think that the characters are engaging at all. It's not.
I'm Duncan Idaho.
But it's such an impressive movie that I have to mention it. Gorgeously shot. Everyone is good in it. Performances are good. Denis really just does. He directs the hell out of the movie. So I just wanted to mention it. But my last movie that I'm going to actually talk about, a movie that you don't love, but I wouldn't even say I love either, but I like a lot, is Last Night in Soho, the Edgar Wright film. The ending of this movie is sort of, I don't know. I think this movie and Baby Driver both have third act problems. I think in Baby Driver and in Last Night in Soho, Edgar Wright has had trouble with the romantic lead in his movies. It's very obvious in Baby Driver. It's super obvious in this one as well. The character just sort of loves the romantic lead loves the main character for seemingly no reason. You totally don't understand why they're sticking around. Other than the main character is attractive. Baby, B-A-B-Y, baby. But I think that this movie is really fun. And I love the whole like fashion art school portion of it. I love the Thomas and Mackenzie performance. I just love Thomas and Mackenzie, a star. Anya Taylor-Joy is very well used in this movie. She's obviously popping up in everything right now. And I think that they utilize her star power in an appropriate way. And also if you're an actor and someone says, hey, do you want to just come dance for like several weeks? You say yes. And that's what she does in this movie. The Matt Smith performance is really good. Everyone in the movie is good. And I think that the movie is just a bunch of fun. It's Edgar Wright getting to do a murder mystery horror movie and crossing those two up. throughout the movie. It's really fun.
Yeah.
I like I said, I have problems with the ending of the movie, but it's just so much fun that I would be so happy or so satisfied if this is just what Edgar Wright's career was from here on out, is making movies like Baby Driver, Last Night in Soho, just taking a sort of a genre and then infusing his particular directorial style into that, and whether it's A+ like Hot Fuzz or whether it's B-ish tier like Baby Driver and Last Night in Soho, it doesn't matter to me. They're always fun.
Yeah, I mean, I will say I do have a lot of issues with the film just in general, but I still give kudos to Edgar Wright for doing something different. I mean, again, like similarly what we were talking about with Wes Anderson, like it's really cool that Edgar Wright is like being bold. Like if he wanted to, he could just make Nick Frost and Simon Pegg comedies for his whole career. But he didn't want to do that. He made 3 and then now he's moving on, and like he's not moving on like some directors do and brings back like actors and stuff. Like genuinely, he always brings a new acting crew every time, which is like impressive and like cool. Like no one in Baby Driver is in this, and no one in Baby Driver is in Hot Fuzz, and like it's just really impressive what he does, and I'm like excited to see what he does next, because like who knows. But yeah, I didn't love it. Anya Taylor-Joy and Thomasin McKenzie really great in it. But I just wish I have a lot of issues. It's just like I wish there was more connection, I guess. But anyways, yeah, I liked it enough. Cool. All right, my last film is tied with Green Knight for my favorite film of the year. Not for everyone. Titane is not for everyone.
Here we go.
So it's a French film by the director who did Raw, Julia. I can't pronounce her last name, but it's like a French last name starting with a D. This movie I understand if people hate it. Genuinely. I understand if people don't like it. The first 30 minutes are agonizing, to say the least. It starts off really hot, as in like just horrible, and like you feel bad, and I like saw it and I'm not squeamish, but I had to look away at some points during this movie at the beginning, because it was just so revolting, really. Just like why are you showing this? And then it does like such a turn, and it becomes such like a delightful movie about identity and fatherhood and just like stuff you don't expect at all. And like, while again it feels, you feel horrible the first 30 minutes, that last section I think that last like 3/4 is so good that it's like, it's just something like truly special. And like, again, I understand if people don't like it, but I think it's one of the most impressive films of the year. If you haven't seen it, I would highly recommend seeing it. I know all the film nerds are like going crazy about it right now, but it is a really awesome film. I saw Raw after it. And yeah, I don't know. I think it's just, there's so much to say about it. And it's just great. And I think everyone should check it out for sure. And again, it's good to get foreign films in there sometimes. But yeah, it's just delightful. And again, I'm always a sucker for fatherhood movies anyways. So that's why I like Guardians of the Galaxy 2 so much. But I'd highly recommend it. Do you have any questions about it, Dan?
Yes, but I'm not going to ask them because I don't want to know any more about the movie, because it has been high on my list for quite some time. I'm very excited to watch it. Once we get closer to the Oscars, and I've had the chance to catch up on a lot of these movies, and you watch some of the movies that you haven't watched, Jack, you've watched some of these movies as well.
All of them.
Yeah.
Then
I'm still here.
It's not going to get any love from anything.
Right. That's why we are going to be the ones giving it love.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And that makes sense. And again, I understand if people hate this movie, but it is so interesting. I've never seen a movie punch you in the fucking face and then go like, but we're cool, right? And then you go, yeah, I guess we are. Because it really punches you in the gut, and it's just horrible. It's like, again, I don't look away, and I did. So that's all I got to say. But again, this is what film and cinema is about. It's about seeing these things, and it's about like like setting yourself up for one thing and then going right, like making you feel a certain way. You know, it's why I like Uncut Gems and like the Safdie brothers so much. Like film isn't like, I'm not going to say true film because that doesn't make sense, but like film that makes you feel something isn't for everyone. But I think I'm at the stage in my life where I love films that make you feel a certain way. And that's why I loved Uncut Gems, why I love Titan. And I think that's also, you know, why like some movies like just don't do it for me. Because movies are entertainment for many people, but also movies are an art form. And it's really interesting to see how people develop different art forms. And I think this whole conversation has been about that and been about so many movies and just so many different styles. And they're all still a movie, you know? Yeah.
I think that's a good place to end on. I liked a lot of movies this year. I'm going to catch up on a lot of these movies, but I think in many ways an improvement from 2020, and only going to get better next year also. So.
Totally, yeah. All right, this has been the Nothing Notable podcast. This is our best of 2021 series. This was our movies podcast. We have one on music and also TV. Check those out. And I've been Tyler.
I've been Daniel.
And I've been Jack.
And thanks so much for listening.